late drama in the Premier League, the Manchester meltdown of Erik ten Hag's squad, and did Everton just have their biggest wish come true? Maybe you should be careful of what you ask for. We'll elaborate more on that in a second. Grab your scarves. We'll start right now. Well, welcome into the supporter section. I am Cole Carter, and this is episode 80 of the supporter section podcast. Before we get started, make sure you drop a like and subscribe if you have not already. Plus, we want your involvement on a news segment here on the supporter section where you can ask us a question down below in the comments on YouTube, and we will cover that in the next episode. It can be about soccer kits, whatever. Just ask us anything. So go ahead and get that done and get ready for today's episode because I have my best friends here with me, Brandon Pasnick and Stephen Curl. Fellas, it is good to see you here. Stephen, good to have you back. Welcome.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to be back. I missed you guys so much. Great job on last week's episode, by the way. I can't wait to get into it.
You look great. So good to see you. In fact, what are you wearing tonight, Steve?
Oh, this little thing? This little Perka Sherpa? Yeah, this is the City in the Forest pullover. 2022-2023 is the season that it was released. I didn't get the sweatpants for it, but it is one of my most comfortable jackets, and I'm bundled up here as the weather's starting to get a little bit cool down here in Atlanta.
Yes, indeed. And Brandon, what you wearing tonight?
I am rocking the 2018-2019 Aston Villa home kit. This is the year that we came up through the championship playoff. The likes of Tammy Abraham, Jack Grealish in full flow. It was very exciting. You guys were with me for that. I hope I have this jersey for the rest of my life. If I lose it, I will be so mad one day.
Honestly, I could totally understand that feeling. I've got my 21-22 Tottenham third kit. This is definitely divisive. It's not very pretty, but it has some sentimental feeling to it. I like it enough. It's just an interesting looking kit. The wild berry color is just unique, I think, in some ways, but I'll let it rest. We are doing that new segment. We have a supporter section, question of the week. We have Wabatella 5909. We'll call you Wabi this go around. And they asked, have y'all been keeping up with Serie A? And if so, who is your early pick for the title? Wild times these past few seasons, and who knows what awaits us this time, with a little sub note saying Forza Roma. Thank you, Wabi, for your question. I will get us started in saying that Roma have lost 2 games already this season with teams getting a red card against them, but they did make up for their most recent match against Empoli, scoring 7 goals to Empoli's 0. They do have some good pieces to compete in Serie A with Dybala back and healthy, Lukaku coming in, and that hopefully will improve their attack. And Renato Sanchez kind of shores up that midfield a bit. Still young and capable player. They're obviously far from perfect, but we've seen time and time again that Mourinho is a wild card no matter where he goes, and he can get the best out of certain players, obviously can ice out certain players as well. So we'll see if he can pull off the miracle of winning the league in Serie A this season. Brandon, who would be your Serie A pick this year?
I think I'm going to stick with my Inter Milan team. I think they're sort of becoming a team I'm falling in love with. As from last year, they were my dark horses to win the Champions League. They made it to the final, made a really good run at it, and gave Man City a really good go. I think I'm going to stick with them. I think they have a really good shot. The coach Inzaghi showed how great of a manager he was last year, completely turning Inter around in the second half of the season in the league, and then again making that run to the Champions League final. They've now continued their form from last season. They've won all of their games this year, which is 4, and they have a goal differential of 12. That's an amazing start to the season, and I believe that they will take the top spot come the end of the season.
I love it. Steve, what about you?
So here's the thing. I struggle with this question because my heart wants one thing and my head says the other. My head is going with Inter Milan to win the title this year, echoing a lot of what Brandon just said, bringing in World Cup whirly goal scorer Benjamin Pavard in the back. I see this team renaissancing back to that 2020 COVID year when they scored 91 points in the league and won it pretty handily. They just got momentum going right now, I think. And an early start to the season, but coming off the Champions League final, like Brandon said, great coach. I think they can get it done, but my heart says Roma. Nothing would tickle me more than to watch Jose Mourinho win Serie A at this point in his career. And honestly, the what I think Romelu Lukaku can do, I think Jose's the guy to get it out of him. Honestly, I don't know why, but I think Roma could also make a nice little run for it as well. Honorable mentions Lazio as well. I mean, AC Milan also won it in the past, like 2 years ago. And then you have Juventus that hit that stretch like 5 years in a row. So honestly, we don't know. It's winners galore, unlike the Premier League where you just chalk it up to Manchester City every year, which kudos to Serie A for being a fun league that we really don't know who's going to win this year. So that's not really an answer, but that's what I'm given.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, initially I was thinking Napoli, but Spalletti leaving, you lose Kim Min-jae, that huge defensive piece. Just not the same squad they were last year when they won Serie A, so no mention of them, but obviously anything can happen. I think they sit fourth right now, obviously early in the season, but obviously we'll see how things play out the rest of the year. And our last beginning segment of the sports section, we have the golden scarf going the person team thing or whatever we thought deserves some praise from the previous week. Brandon, you're going to kick us off on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to be a homer here and say Aston Villa from being 1-0 down to Crystal Palace. If we would have lost that game or even drawn it, that wouldn't have been a fair result. Aston Villa definitely deserved to win the game on the day. John Duran banger, probably goal of the week. I don't know. Adoy's goal today was really, really nice, but John Duran's probably had more technique to it. I don't know. I'll let you be the judge. But then we got a penalty, which little controversial, but I will take it. That comes with the territory of VAR. And then a Leon Bailey cherry on top. It just really made me feel good going into our first long week of the season. By that I mean Europe starting for Aston Villa for the first time in like over 10 years. So that's very, very exciting. And it's also 9 straight home Premier League games, Premier League wins in a row. So keeping the ball rolling at home. We'll see if we can do it away this week.
Well, you mentioned Callum Hudson-Odoi's goal, and that was going to be my golden scarf of the week. That goal for him helps Nottingham Forest get the tie against Burnley. Obviously, he's a new signing to the club, and he said the moment it left his foot, he says, was I going to hit the post or go in? And it did both, and it was obviously a massive goal, and hopefully it can build some confidence for him and Nottingham Forest, who are sitting top 10 in the Premier League. Will it last? Probably not, but for the time being, it's the highest they've been in the Premier League in such a long time. So they probably will ride that high for as long as they can, Steve. But for you, your golden scarf goes to who?
Oh, yes, my golden scarf. It's going to go to a 32-year-old, 2-time Premier League winner and Champions League winner in 2007-2008 season with Manchester United. Can you guess it? It's Danny Welbeck for Brighton, who found the net against his former club over the weekend in that trouncing against Manchester United at Old Trafford. Good on you. 32 years old, turning 33 in November. Danny Welbeck. It was a dummy from Lalana. Just some fun names, just blast from the past. This Brighton team has the likes of Lalana, Welbeck, Fati. I love
Milner.
James Milner, Mitoma. It's just Ferguson. This team is fun, and I just can't take my eyes off them. But watching Danny Welbeck score at Manchester United, it was just one of those things like, that's so fun. Like, it's just so fun to see a guy 32, about to be 33, kind of considered to be kind of edging out of their prime of soccer, especially in the Premier League, scoring against Manchester United for a Brighton team that, outside of Manchester City, is the best looking team in the Premier League so far this season, in my opinion. So that's fun.
Wow.
I love getting to see Welbeck score. Brighton scoring away at Man U. I think Brandon and I talked about it like, all right, how many goals is Brighton going to beat Manchester United by? And then to watch it happen, it's just pretty funny. So kudos to you, Danny Welbeck. I don't like you for your Arsenal days, but, way to score against Man U.
I love it. I love it. And speaking of Manchester United, the meltdown that we alluded to in the intro, Erik ten Hag having a rough time right now at the beginning of the season. Such a myriad of players with injury issues, but the one that's been making the headlines has been Jadon Sancho. They did release a statement in which revealed that the winger, Jadon Sancho, has been training alone away from the rest of Erik ten Hag's side while a squad disciplinary issue is investigated. That Sancho saga has been one of the most eye-catching stories of that international break we just had. And after Ten Hag left the Englishman out of his side for the trip to Arsenal, He explained how this decision was based on Sancho's poor training and his performances there. Sancho did not take the criticism well. He released a statement on social media labeling the assumption he had been not training properly as completely untrue and slamming the fact that he has been a Man United scapegoat for so long. Numerous reports have been talking about Ten Hag's anger at Sancho for undermining him so publicly, while several pundits have criticized the attacker for causing the club even more controversy. So in a short statement, Man United confirmed that Sancho will undergo his personal training program away from the usual group until that resolution of the falling out is found. He's still only 23. This is a short-term punishment. Obviously, this could include some fines, an actual official suspension once that investigation is concluded. But we will see how this one plays out. Brandon, any more details or anything to add on this situation right now with Jadon Sancho and Erik ten Hag?
Not really. I wanted to quote Ten Hag here. He says he had no choice but to take a tough stance on Sancho. Quote, "It's in favor of the team. That is what my decision is based on. That is not about me. And to be strict, no. This is in favor of the team," end quote. I don't know how I feel about this, Steve. I want to hear your thoughts. I'm sure you've been following it a little bit as well. It's one of those things that Sancho just hasn't hit the ground running, and I don't think he can say, "I've been a scapegoat for a long time." You've been there for a season, and you didn't even play last year, bro. You had your own, this sort of a similar thing. You went and saw a psychologist. You were doing your own training in the Netherlands or whatever he was doing. Like he wasn't even part of the squad for half the year. You weren't a scapegoat. People believed in you. Ten Hag seemingly gave you chances, was trying to get you better. You come back and then Ten Hag doesn't really seem like a liar. I'll just be honest with you. Ten Hag seems like he's an honest person. So if he's saying you're not training well, I'm sure you know that you're not. And it's not an attack on your character. It's an attack on your performances in training. And I think if you're that much of an issue that Ten Hag actually publicly speaks about it, you might need to take a hard look at yourself. I think this might be an ego issue. This guy was one of the best players in the world, or touted as such, before making the move to Manchester United. A massive fee to bring him over in like a 2-year long transfer battle with Dortmund. And he's done absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So I'm honestly on Team Ten Hag with this one. Sancho, you really needed to get it together. But what do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it right on the head talking about the ego. And if there's one thing being Sancho, you had the examples of Cristiano Ronaldo last year. It seems like multiple seasons ago, but this just happened last year. Issues with Ten Hag and one of the best players of all time who came out of that situation as the victor. Ronaldo fans might disagree, but no, it's Ten Hag, right? And so who are you, just like you said, to not play last year, not really be a massive player for the club at this point, and coming out on social media, just talk to the manager face to face. That's what I don't understand about this. Yeah, Sancho, I definitely think is in the wrong here. I think it was either ESPN FC or Sky Sports. One of the pundits, I wish I could remember right now, was talking about if Fergie was at the helm of the club, Sancho would never play again. Because that's just the thing. That's just the ship that Fergie kind of, had back when he was manager of the club. And as social media evolves, these things become more common of statements from players and whatnot. But it doesn't mean that these managers have to change with those times. If you're not in the managers, like if you're going to go against, like, listen, we don't need this distraction right now. It's not like you're scoring goals and assisting down the wing right now. Like, I got this Ronaldo kid over here that is Argentinian that shows freaking fire and passion. I still have Martial who can score goals, and other guys. Like, it comes next up at that point. If you're going to be so trivial to go on Instagram and post things and stuff like that. So it couldn't come at a worse time for Manchester United. I mean, especially this Brighton win is just the icing on the cake. This team just needs to figure out their identity and get going. Figure out their best 11 and just play. And Ten Hag's figuring that out, and Sancho might have just found himself on the outs for the rest of the season until January, potentially, when he makes a move.
crazy. It's crazy. It feels a lot like kind of like the NBA scene almost, where these NBA superstars just feel like they can kind of say what they want and do what they want without repercussions. Either sometimes it's a way to get out of the town or city they're playing in the NBA, but this one it feels like with Sancho just getting there, that he's not trying to get a move. It's just there seems to be some kind of ego that he has, and I feel like Ten Hag is probably doing what's right for the club and potentially for Jaden. He may not understand it because he might just be ignorant to the fact that he could be doing good for himself. But yeah, it just feels like it's Ten Hag is playing the boss and he's doing his job as a manager. Obviously, like we said, not a good time for Man U. They already have tons of distractions, including what we mentioned last episode with Anthony and his whole thing going on there. So it's been crazy. It certainly has been an interesting start to their season. The performances on the field have been impacted, that is for sure. Well, we mentioned it earlier as well that sometimes you dream of things happening, but sometimes it does not pan out how you thought. We'll see how this one happens with Everton being bought by the 777 partners. Everton announced that the club's major stake shareholder, Farhad Mashiri, has signed an agreement with that Miami-based partner over the purchase of the Premier League club. They went on to say, "We are truly humbled by the opportunity to become part of the Everton family as custodians of the club and consider it a privilege to be able to build on its proud heritage and values," Josh Wander, founder and managing partner of 777 Partners, said in a statement Friday. Obviously, any prospective takeover is subject to regulatory approval from the Premier League, the FA, and the Financial Conduct Authority. If everything progresses smoothly, the club suggested the transaction might go through by the end of this year. There was no disclosure on how much the partners will be paying for its 94% stake in the club, but we will see how much that comes out to at the end of the day. They already have a couple of stakes in different clubs, 777, which Everton will become a part of. Teams like Sevilla, Genoa, Vasco da Gama in Brazil, the Belgian club Standard Liège, French team Red Star FC, and Australian team Melbourne Victory. Everton fans surely will have their eyes on this one closely, but the change of ownership will bring some fortune, hopefully, in their eyes. But obviously, major speculation. Of course, anytime any team comes in looking to change things up, especially this one, brand that has a little bit of reputation.
Yes, I've been paying attention a little bit to this one. Supposedly the fans of those clubs you just mentioned, I think specifically Genoa, they're not very happy with the ownership group. I think this ownership group is known for taking over teams that, they look at them as opportunities to grab money, I guess. Maybe a team's not doing so well and they probably need to sell, so they swoop in this big 777 Partners group and buy these clubs. Everton is one of those historic teams that it can get very, very ugly if you start making wrong decisions at the top. Mashiri, I don't think did much wrong. A lot of Everton fans might disagree, but he put a lot of money into the club and then basically got handcuffed with FFP. He's trying to build a new stadium. Just trying to he's tried with Everton, but mistakes were made along the way, and they just haven't reached the heights. I'm worried with this 777 group. We will have to see. The jury's going to be out for a while now, but if I don't know if Everton go down, do they stay in? Possibly. With the new stadium being built, they're taking on that. Like, what? I don't know. I wouldn't be super comfortable if this was the group taking over my club, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, it will be interesting. And we mentioned other clubs getting bought too, with Chelsea potentially looking to buy Sporting from Portugal as a feeder club for Chelsea. The transfer window obviously is closed, but Chelsea's owners are never strapped for cash and be looking to splash once again. The Blues co-owners Badad Egbali and Todd Bowley may now expand their club portfolio, acquiring a stake in Sporting Lisbon, despite already spending $1 billion on Chelsea players alone since taking over in May of just last year. According to Telegraph, there are already serious plans to take a minority stake in the Premier League of Giants, who are currently third in that league. This consortium recently took a major stake in League One Club Strasbourg with a view to use it as a place to develop their players, putting in $65 million in investment in the process. However, given that Sporting are 19-time Portuguese football champions and UEFA Cup winners, Bully getting them to be a part of a multi-club model right now could be a step too far. There's an acceptance among people that Sporting can't be expected to be treated like a smaller European club, desperate for investment like others, like you just mentioned, the ones from 777, like Vasco da Gama, even the ones like Red Star in France. Kind of a different situation here. But Chelsea's co-owners see the club as pathways, either to the Blues' first team or a sale to generate financial fair play compliant funds. Sort of an interesting tidbit there. Obviously, aside from looking to expand their sports empire over the summer, the Blues Chiefs were also focusing on how to achieve a 100-point team. They are far from that right now. But the Telegraph says the owners were continuously thinking about what that team looks like and putting together the right players who will make that team possible. So interesting strategy here from the American team with Baghdadi Bali and Todd Boehly. Interesting to see their perspective on the European market, as well as these teams. It seems like they don't always have a regard for the history of these clubs as much as they just want to win quick, win fast, and spend a lot of money to get there. Any thoughts from you guys on Chelsea once again influencing the game in drastic ways?
Steve?
I mean, how much money do these guys have? I hope FFP is just. I hope there's like an investigator that's set up shop at Todd Bowley's house at this point. Because I don't know. I mean, it's like, sure, like, as Sporting Lisbon, like, you can't buy them. You can't buy that team. It is one of the most historic teams in Portugal. They are way too massive to be bought. But I think that's just such a bad look. If I'm a Sporting fan, I'd be livid. I would not be excited. To be a feeder to Chelsea? No. In my opinion, I'm not a Sporting fan, but I would laugh this off as American ignorance 100%. Because that's what I think it is. I mean, I would be absolutely shocked if that were to actually ever happen. I don't think it will. And I think again, Todd Boehly's just puts more of a target on his back from UEFA, like FFP from the Premier League. Everybody should be looking at this man. But anyways, maybe he should concentrate on the 11 on the field for Chelsea before they get relegated this season, because that's going to cost a lot more money than buying Sporting Lisbon. Just saying that. So.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And we've also already seen the likes of the City group. I want to also talk, I think it's RB Leipzig's Red Bull group. We've already kind of seen this happen with other teams. This isn't necessarily something new, but seeing it with such a big club like Sporting paints a little bit of a different picture here on this one, I think. But let's jump into the Premier League. Match Week 5 has passed. We will review some of the best games that we saw and give some thoughts on it as well. The game that took place today as we recorded was Nottingham Forest and Burnley. That one ended in a 1-1 draw, despite Forest looking like the more likely to score in the first half. It was Koleosho, the Italian-American, with an assist to Amaduni in the 41st minute. A great first-time strike into the corner. And as I mentioned, Callum Hudson-Odoi with a banger of a goal in the 61st minute with a beautiful curler off the post and in. But Brandon, this one was not without some controversy.
Yeah, of course. Why did you point it to me to bring up the VAR calls? There was a call and a non-call. A handball was not given against Burnley that would have resulted in a penalty. I forget what minute that was in. I've seen those be given plenty of times in the past. And a goal that was called back after Burge's bicep helped settle the ball before assisting Foster for Burnley's then second goal that was called back. Did you see this, and do you think... I mean, I get the handball no call, but Sander Berge... you didn't see it. Okay, good. Doing our homework here. I don't know. It's right on the line of his jersey sleeve. So I really don't know. The more I watched it, it seems like it comes off like the skin part of the sleeve, if that makes sense. Like more of the ball was hitting the arm, but it was literally that close. You know how we've been hearing the past year or 2 years now. You know, where is that line? Is it strictly the shoulder, for the handball, or is it the sleeve? And we've been told it's the sleeve now, right? You can get away with most of the sleeve. We've seen this be called wrong multiple times last year. Was it called wrong today? In my opinion, it was not. It definitely clearly comes off his bicep. That's more of the arm than the shoulder. I think it was fair to call that goal back, but controversial nonetheless.
Yeah, VAR and just seems like it's just still has not been sorted out despite strides to make everything more clear and more settled. It just has not been that way at all. We've seen so many coaches already coming out this season talking against it, and just the referees in general having such a hard time taking a grapple on the games. West Ham and Man City, though, West Ham had not beaten City since 2015, and that streak did not come to an end, and it continues. Definitely not without trying, as the Hammers actually struck first through a James Ward-Prowse header in the 36th minute. But the new signing, Jeremy Doku, scored a slick goal right after halftime to level the match. Both teams would have their chances, but ultimately, 76th minute, Bernardo Silva scored their second. And, of course, no one can score any goals on Manchester City without Erling Haaland getting in on the action, bagging the third goal in the 86th minute. So no surprises that Man City took this one. But a little bit of an interesting game between Newcastle and Brentford. Brandon, the breakdown on this one.
Yeah, really, it was honestly, I watched it. It was pretty boring, and maybe that's not a fair judgment on the game. Flecken, the Brentford goalkeeper, had to make an insane goal line save against Bruno Guimaraes' header in the 28th minute. I mean, it was just a top level save. That ball should have been in the back of the net, but really saves them, keeps it 0-0. Newcastle would score in the 57th minute through Callum Wilson, but VAR strikes again and rightly brought back a Wilson goal. He had interfered with the goalkeepers going up to like catch it or punch it, and he held his arms down. I think that was a fair call for VAR. But VAR does get involved again, where Newcastle were gifted an opportunity through a penalty in the 62nd minute that Wilson would eventually put away. Weird play, Cole. Maybe you can talk more about it. But Flecken, there's a ball passed back to him from their left back, I think it is. This is Brentford. And Flecken goes to clear it, but the ball wasn't quick enough, and Anthony Gordon was right on it. The goalkeeper slides in, pulls out, and Anthony Gordon, expecting the contact, just like runs into Flecken. What are your thoughts on this? I can see it being given. I can see it being not given. It was given on the field, so then it makes it very hard for VAR to overturn it unless it's clear and obvious, that language. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Here's the thing. Keepers, oftentimes, they kind of get caught in that middle, right? It's that split-second decision you have to make if you're going to stay in your goal or come out for the ball. And Flecken here came out quickly, but then realized that ball was going to harmlessly go out of bounds, and so he decided to let it go. And so instead of diving fully into it, he kind of knee slides and tries to stop himself. But his body language is pretty clear that he was going to do that. So Anthony Gordon reads him and jumps more or less into his path and gets his legs sort of swiped out from underneath him. I think pretty softly, to be honest. So I actually think it's I think it's a tough penalty call. I would not have given the penalty. I think the goalkeeper has every right to go after the ball, and I don't think he makes a heinous attempt at the ball. I don't think it was unfair. I think it was a pretty fair attempt at the ball. And I think that Anthony Gordon took advantage of the situation, sold it pretty well.
Yeah,
I think he went down really easily and, whatever. But I would not have given it. I think it's really unfortunate because Brentford at that point was in the game, and Newcastle I really don't think deserved all 3 points in this one.
Yeah, it was an interesting game. A penalty was also given later in the game in favor of Newcastle again in the 80th minute for a handball, but again, I think rightly overturned by VAR. I say rightly as if I know what they're thinking in the booth anymore. Like, I really don't. I've seen these given as well. The guy's not looking at the ball. It's headed back down onto him from the opposing player and then hits his arm that's extended from his body. I don't know at this point what is and what's not, but I wouldn't have given it, so I'm glad they overturned it. Wissa did miss a massive chance at the back post in the 93rd minute, though, for Brentford to potentially tie the game. He misheaded it, and the game ended 1-0. Steve, not really the Newcastle we are used to seeing. Why do you think this was?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it for the past few weeks, and just like y'all just got done saying here, did Newcastle really deserve all 3 points? And I would say no. I mean, 11 shots for Brentford. Both had teams, I believe, had 2 or 3 shots on goal. It could really be going either way here. And so Newcastle has to have a long look in the mirror before the season really gets underway, especially with Europe starting this week, like we've been talking about, to really figure it out. They've had a very tough run of games of recent, again, to be fair, against some very good teams. But you're looking at a team like Brentford, and maybe a draw is probably the fair result out of this game. And so, I mean, Eddie Howe and the boys, Anthony Gordon, and Anthony Gordon, subject of the manner of the penalty. Anthony Gordon, where are you at? Besides on the floor in the goalie's box. Signed on big money from Everton. Like, let's not forget that. Like, big money from Everton. He's supposed to be one of these huge guys coming into the team, and has not produced at all. I think he's had 1 goal so far in this season, but yeah, I think there's just a lack of. I mean, Miggy seems like and Isak going forward, like the only 2 people that are really just kind of consistent. Colin Wilson, I don't know. I don't know though. To answer your question though, for Newcastle, it hasn't been good enough, and it almost wasn't good enough against Brentford. And so as Newcastle gets starting off with AC Milan, I believe coming in the midweek here tomorrow, by the time we're recording today, they better figure it out, because that finish last year in the Premier League is looking more and more like, I don't know, a thing of the past. We'll see.
You calling that a fluke, Steve?
I'm not. Here's the thing. I'm not calling it a fluke, but at the same time, if it weren't for Manchester United being an absolute disarray, Chelsea being so abysmal, like, you're not looking at Newcastle in the top 4. It's only off the misfortune of other teams why Newcastle is even like. Oh, it's like, well, who's better? It's like, oh, well, is Tottenham for real? I don't know. Like, it's probably Newcastle in the top 4, probably. But there's going to come to the point where the real teams will start to rise to the top, and Newcastle needs to be in that crew before the season just hits you fast with Europe. This is something that Newcastle hasn't seen in a long time, European competition, that is. So I'm not confident that Eddie Howe won't figure it out. I mean, I think he should have done for Premier League Manager of the Year last year. But, yeah.
Yeah, I will say as well, jumping in, they cycled their team a little bit, I think, in preparation for this week with Europe. So that could have been a reason why. And at the end of the day, they get the win. So they get the 3 points. I think that's what they'll take. They'll take 3 points ugly rather than 1 point nice, I guess. So, yeah.
Points are points at the end of the day. And we see that Brighton has been getting lots of points this season, making it 4 wins on the season and 4 straight wins against Manchester United. That first goal came from a beautiful dummy by Lallana. Danny Welbeck, as you mentioned earlier, puts it away in the 20th minute. Man United answered back with a goal in the 40th through Højlund, but called back due to the ball going out of play. Rashford taking chances but not getting any of them in the goal. Pascal Gross, though, got his great goal in the 53rd minute to get that 2-0 lead for the Seagulls, and João Pedro, the strike from the old Watford striker, settling the game with a beautiful first-time shot in the 71st minute. Hannibal's consolation goal didn't mean much in the 73rd minute, and as we said, injuries, issues off the field, and poor performances. Things are looking down for Manchester United right now, but Brighton deserves some praise here, don't they?
I think so. Honestly, the game was pretty even. Brighton didn't look as terrifying, like in a good way, as they have in past games, but I was listening to something, and Manchester United fans were like, yeah, we'll probably lose this game at home. And like, when do Manchester United fans ever think they're going to lose at home? That's how good this Brighton team is, that other fans' teams like realize it, that they could get torn apart. And torn apart, I think, would be harsh against this Manchester United team who's already, on the ground. But Brighton definitely deserved the win over Manchester United. I think a little bit of hero ball from Marcus Rashford. I think we might need to watch that come this season. I don't know if hero ball is a term they use in England, but it's basically when you're trying to do too much. And Rashford just had that written all over him all day. He was just trying to do too much, and it never really came together. What are your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, exactly what I thought would happen. I mean, like you said, like it wasn't. See, it's just Rashford up front. Like I don't know where else that Man United was expecting to get their goals from. You see McTominay in the starting 11 on this side. It's just they're still cycling players in and out, and they just did not look like they had a cohesive group that entire game. Um, and Brighton looks really good. Very well worked goals by Danny Welbeck, and goodness gracious, that second goal. Who was it? Who was it? Who was it? We just talked
Pascal
about
Gross.
Pascal Gross. Oh my gosh, the little hezzy he put on Lisandro Martinez. That was just, it was just so nice. And then João Pedro with the goal. Every goal that Brighton scored was just class. Like every finish was class, and it just doesn't look good for United right now. Obviously, but Brighton are just soaring, and the scary thing is when you realize that the transfer window is closed, and you have until January. And if you're United, you're looking at your squad, you're going, he could leave, he could leave, he could leave. We could use improvements here, here, and here, and you kind of just got gotten underway. Ten Hag, I hope, if I was a United fan, I hope Ten Hag survives. But there's a possibility that he won't. There really is a possibility that he won't. Because they keep losing these games, but I don't know who they have next on the list, but it's just not looking good. Johnny Evans, Harry Maguire, Lindelof, all the guys that you can throw in the back there. These guys are just going to get ripped up, and so hopefully United can hold on a little bit. I think I picked them to finish in the top 4, top 3, even to start the season off. And my only thing about Ten Hag, and then I'll shut up, is complaining about. I mean, we go back to the first week at Wolves. They should have potentially lost. Like, the Wolves should have been awarded a PK. Let's talk about that for a minute. And let's talk about Ten Hag complaining about an offsides rule that's completely black and white against Arsenal. And then there's the ball.
All right.
Thank God he stopped talking. No, just kidding.
No, that's all right. We'll get back to Steven in a second, hopefully at some point. I did want to mention, I guess, that Wolves win honestly could have easily been a draw. They have lost, in fairness to Man U. They've lost to Tottenham 2-0, Arsenal 3-1, and Brighton 3-1. Those are the 3 top 5 teams right now. But it's hard to take any solace in those losses when you don't score goals and you're giving up 3, 3, and 2. That's not a good look. And so you do have a lot to figure out for Ten Hag right now. Definitely, off some of the success they've had recently, his early times here at Man United, I don't think he's on the hot seat necessarily right now. They've had so many injuries, and you add up the Antony and Sancho debates with their stuff going on around. It's just hard to pin it all on Ten Hag, I would say. But obviously, as the season goes on, if these results continue to not go their way, maybe that seat will begin to heat up. The hot seat that Mauricio Pochettino has inevitably always been on, the second that he signed the dotted line for Chelsea, got a little bit eased up maybe with a draw against Bournemouth. Obviously, you want to get wins when you can, but getting points on the board right now is all they can do. 0-0, first draw of the season. Arsenal beat Everton 1-0, and Aston Villa, Brandon, talk about this one real quick for us.
I talked about it at the beginning. It's 9 wins at home in the Premier League in a row. Just really great. I'm really waiting for Ollie Watkins to get off the mark. Sort of struggling, but when you have goals coming from all over, from the subs especially, like I'm just in really good feels right now. Not much to talk about. Crystal Palace had one thing on the mind, and that was to sit back and counter all day and get lucky. Their goal, I wouldn't say it was luck. It was from bad defending, sort of on a counter. They get it, and they go back to hunkering down because Aston Villa, as we know, are very good. They can play through just about anybody at this point. Great win, great comeback win at home, great late win as well. I know Tottenham had one of those as well this weekend. So we will take the 3 points heading into Chelsea. Yeah,
and let's preview some of those match week 6 games. We have Luton versus Wolves. These two teams have only faced off once, and that was in the 2013 FA Cup, where Luton took that one 1-0. They're still looking for their first points of the season, while Wolves are looking to stay above the relegation line. So in all reality, this is a 6-point relegation game. Obviously, Luton needs the points more than Wolves, but who would the loss be worse for, Brandon?
I think the loss would be worse for Wolves because it drags them back into that fight. They're trying to stay above that mix, the mix of Luton, Sheffield, Burnley, Everton. If they can stay above that mix, they'll be fine. If they lose to Luton, that means Luton will get their first 3 points of the season, their first points of the season. I don't see it happening. Then, yeah, man, that's just scary times for Wolves and Gary O'Neill. We want to talk about hot seats. Maybe he's on the hot seat immediately, I don't know. I think it's worse for Wolves. I'll just leave it there because it's worse for both these teams. Luton need points. Wolves don't want to be dragged in there. I don't know. This game sucks.
Yeah, and I think the expectations for Luton are just a little bit softer than Wolves. Wolves obviously expect to stay up. They're only a couple seasons removed from having a European appearance. But Luton, I think any team they're going to be playing up against this year, maybe against Sheffield, they have somewhat of a chance. They're always going to be supreme underdogs. I just don't see them succeeding almost at all this season. It could be historically bad for them. But Chelsea and Aston Villa coming up on the docket. Since coming up, Villa have only beaten Chelsea twice, Chelsea winning 5 of those and getting 1 draw between the two sides. The previous matchup was a pivotal one, the one that kickstarted Villa's run to a European spot, and one that seemingly doomed Chelsea to the bottom half last season, a 2-0 win at Stamford Bridge with the Villains. So this will be a test for both teams. Villa haven't been playing very well on the road this year against big opponents, but Chelsea haven't played well at all this year. So in your eyes, Brandon, who has the edge in this one?
I want to get your point of view on this. I do think Villa has the edge. Chelsea is one of those teams that is down in the dumps, and Villa will keep them there. I think we will kick them. Now, I am worried about how many goals we've given up when we go away. I think we gave up 3 to Liverpool and 5 to Newcastle. Not very fun. But Chelsea's not of that caliber, let's be honest. But they could turn up. So I am a little worried there, but I think Aston Villa can definitely get a win, at least not get a point. I think it'll be a hard-fought game overall. What do you think?
Man, I feel like for the past year we've been talking about how weird Chelsea is. I feel like at this point, Pochettino can rally the guys and get a result at the very least. I think at the minimum, they're going to be walking with points here. I don't think you guys will win. I would have to figure that Pochettino can figure things out. And I probably would stick with like a 1-1 draw. It's going to be just a hard, long season for them. A lot of young players, a lot of unproven players on this squad still. I don't think they'll come away with much but just a point in this one, I think. So we will see. We will see. But Steven, you and I have a big weekend ahead of us. Tottenham will be traveling to the Emirates. This whole series that has been taking place between the two teams has fallen in favor of Arsenal. They've won 81 games. Tottenham's won 61, and between the two sides, there have been 51 draws. In the last 5 league matchups, Tottenham has only been able to muster 1 win, of which I was at. And Spurs have not won at the Emirates since November 20th in 2010 in the Premier League, back when we had Modric, Gareth Bale, and Aaron Lennon all sharing the same pitch. But Tottenham had a dramatic comeback over the weekend versus Sheffield, something that happened very, very late. The biggest comeback and latest comeback in Premier League history, happening in the 102nd minute, I think I want to say. 12 minutes of extra time, pretty incredible. Richarlison and Kulusevski getting the goals to help win against that one. But Arsenal, they defeated Everton on a straightforward 1-0 win at Goodison Park. So the game's going to be interesting here. On one hand, you have Arsenal, who has everything to prove, really need the 3 points at home, but they also have their Champions League campaign starting this week, so it'll be interesting how they do on the back-to-back. Tottenham, on the other hand, no European competition this season. We're already out of the Carabao Cup. We're really just looking to play this free style of football. We're scoring goals. We're looking happy. Morale is very, very high right now. We've had a hard time going to the Emirates. Steven, if you have any thoughts on this one, are we going to be okay or is it going to be another loss at the Emirates for us once again?
Ah, man. Well, when I was doing some research before recording the episode, and I saw that it's been since 2010 that we've won at the Emirates. I'm sorry, I don't think it's going to start now. I think Tottenham looks really good. I think a win for Tottenham is going to the Emirates and getting a point. If I'm being honest, and I think Tottenham fans are being honest with themselves as well. Arsenal's a very good team. They look very good. Yes, they're starting Europe. I tried to find some silver linings here and there, but I do think Arsenal is a better team than Tottenham this year, even in the early going. But this is going to be a huge test for Tottenham, a huge test for Arsenal as well. Also on the flip side, the only thing Tottenham has going for them is, again, like I would say, there's nothing to lose. Like, we're just kind of playing, this new, Postacoglu ball, like whatever that even means. We're still free flowing. It's like, what do we got to lose? Like, let's see what could happen if we just go to the Emirates. Arsenal, on the other hand, they have pressure. They do. Like after last season, they got a lot of pressure on them. So if there's anything there, but I'm hoping for a draw. I'm hoping for a draw and some entertaining football. And if I get a win, I might be taking my clothes off at work. So we'll see.
Wow. Brandon, as the kind of neutral fan here, what do you see?
This has at least 5 goals written all over it. It might be a 5-0 Arsenal win. I think this game could get ugly for Postecoglou and the new Spurs, but I hope that's not the case. I think Arsenal will win, though. I'm hoping for a 3-2. I mean, I'm not hoping, but I think Arsenal will win. And if there's 5 goals in it, like I'm thinking there might be, I hope it's close, and I hope it's 3-2.
That's fair. I mean, this is kind of the first real test we've had. I think the Man U game, as we've just been belaboring the point of Man U having a weird start to their season, it's our first real test against a top opponent. Obviously, it's your biggest rival. So you hope the expectation is that you're going to be coming in prepared. But we'll see how it goes. This is a team that has not been tested on the road, that hasn't been given the chance to go be a big team. So I think the things that Tottenham can do right are to be getting Sonny involved and for Sonny to be playing with confidence. If he's not playing with confidence, then a lot of the game's going to have to go through James Maddison. And he can only do so much without Sonny. I think Richarlison got his goal this week. Maybe he'll be the difference maker. But really, I think Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard have torn us up recently, especially at the Emirates last year. It was an ugly affair, too. So who knows what's going to happen? I think 5-0 probably is a bit of an exaggeration. I think our defense will be fine enough. I think Mickey Van de Ven's shown some confidence being a young guy back there with Christian Romero. But really, I think it's going to fall on the guys up front to see what they can do on Sunday. But let's look forward to the Champions League. We talked about the newcomers, Newcastle going to AC Milan. Those semifinalists, AC Milan in the Champions League, and they take on Newcastle United. These teams have never played each other. So what can we even expect in a matchup like this between an English and Italian side, Brandon?
I really don't know. It's a newly formed AC Milan and a Newcastle that's fresh to the Champions League. I think it's going to be very, very exciting. I can't wait to watch Christian Pulisic and Rafael Leao and Olivier Giroud go at it against Newcastle's back four. We're going to see Miguel Almiron in the real Champions League, which I might shed a tear. What a ride that's been for him, I'm sure. It's at the San Siro. I don't really know. It's going to be a difficult match for Newcastle. I think it's going to be a different level than what they're used to. Maybe a little hostile. We'll see. I think a draw would be a fair result, though.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think, AC Milan, obviously they beat Tottenham in the round of 16 last season, so they've played English competition recently in Champions League, and they fared okay. Then I think Newcastle will have I think it'll be a bit overwhelming for them. I think it'll probably be like a 1-0 win for AC Milan. Just that experience, having been there, done that, obviously going to semifinals already, I think they'll just be a little bit little less wide-eyed than Newcastle. So I feel like AC Milan will probably take this first one in the group stage. And again, that's not a bad thing for Newcastle. It's your first time back in the Champions League. You got to get your feet wet. You got to get used to this competition again. So really, I don't feel like losing a close game like a 1-0 or something like that, 2-1, is a huge negative. It's something that you can hopefully build off of, and Eddie Howe can get the boys reared up and ready to go for the rest of that group stage. But the probably most intriguing matchup, I would say, is PSG and Dortmund. Brandon, what's a little bit of a preview for this one?
Steve wrote this, but Champions League royalty, LMAO, PSG, take on Dortmund in this Group F group stage. These two sides have faced each other just 4 times, with results ending in a win apiece and 2 draws. PSG is off to a slow start in Ligue 1 with just 1 win in their last 5 in the competition. On the other hand, Dortmund have hammered in 14 goals in their last 5 outings. Pretty big matchup, Steve. Who do you have?
Here's the thing. I'm going for the upset. I got Dortmund on this. I think I looked at the sports book with DraftKings. They're like plus 350. I don't know why PSG is favored that much. They're missing Kimpembe, and I think they have a couple other injuries off the top of my head. I can't remember. It's at PSG, but listen, Dortmund, this is a Group F that is so exciting. We talked about AC Milan and Newcastle, and we got Dortmund and PSG all in the same group together. So some of these teams can't go through. And, I put the caveat there as Champions League royalty, PSG. Maybe they don't make it past the group stage this year. I don't know. You don't know. And so I think Dortmund's a team that can really make this back line specifically of PSG hurt, and I like the firepower of it. They're only missed 3 guys going into the game. None really that much starters. Reyna's not going to be available, which is sad for the Americans. But, I think if Dortmund goes in there, and listen, PSG is vulnerable. Only, like I said, 2 wins in the last 5 in Ligue 1. They're not inspiring confidence. They have Mbappe. That's... what else is there to say about PSG at this point, honestly? But I fancy Dortmund's chances to at least get a point at PSG. I think it's going to be a great game. It's my number 1 game to watch tomorrow.
It could be a rude awakening for PSG. Obviously, Champions League is everything to them. They do still have Kylian Mbappe on their side. He did not leave in the summer. He's obviously playing despite all these different threats and whatnot. Luis Enrique has something to figure out. If they can get Mbappe to turn up for Champions League, maybe not for Ligue 1, but for Champions League, then yeah, they still can make it out of the group. They will be at home, as much of a difference that can make sometimes. The Parc des Princes can create an atmosphere. If it's going to be hostile towards Mbappe, then they might have to be in favor of Dortmund in this one. But I think it'll probably be a 1-1 draw, maybe some late drama here and there, but I'm not seeing anything too crazy in this one. I think PSG will figure things out. I don't think they're going to be falling off the face of the earth anytime soon, especially in Ligue 1, and they'll figure things out, I think, there. But Bayern Munich and Manchester United, these teams have played 4 times in the Champions League, twice in 2010 and twice in 2014. Bayern winning 2, Man U winning 1, and there was a draw. Right now, the way that things have been going at Man United and the way things are going at Bayern, it seems to be a massive gap, to say the least, between these 2 squads. Brandon, if you were to expect anything in this one, what would you expect?
On the face of it, it's Munich slaughterhouse, as in they're taking the butcher and Lisandro Martinez and tying him up by his feet and going to town. I think it could be real ugly. And not to take you back, but to the Tottenham Bayern game from a couple years ago. Manchester United could score 1, I think. But Kane's going to want to, this is the Kane match. These are the 2 teams that were in for Harry Kane this summer. Manchester United really missed their opportunity, and they're really struggling. I think Kane is going to pile it on. I'm expecting at least 4 from Bayern, if I'm being honest with you. I think Manchester United is going to get smacked down raw, WWE style.
That is probably a fair assumption. I think, yeah, Harry Kane's already got 4 goals in 4 games, I think, in the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
He'll be ready to go in the Champions League. He's done this against Manchester United in the Premier League before. I would not expect anything less from him. And obviously, getting to play with players like Sane has certainly been a big improvement and big help to him in his Bundesliga success so far. Steve, big quick prediction real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go for Bayern Munich as well. But I mean, they haven't been without their drama of their club with transfers going on in their front office. Honestly, it's kind of in a madhouse over there in Munich as well. But luckily for them, they're playing Manchester United, so I can't see a result other than a United not a United win, a Bayern Munich win here. I'll go a little bit more conservative. I'll go 3-1, maybe like a 2-0 kind of situation. But I do think Kane bags a goal against Premier League side Manchester United. And hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully he says, come on, you Spurs when he does it. I don't know. I miss him. Anyways, I'm sorry.
It never gets easy. Well, we'll see what happens in that one. The other ones to watch, we have Real Madrid versus Champions League newcomers Union Berlin. We talked about them a little bit last episode. Arsenal, PSV, and Sevilla versus Lens. Champions League is back. Cannot wait to watch Champions League in the midday. In Europa League, we got some matchups. Ajax and Marseille, Rangers and Real Betis, Olympiacos and Freiburg. And the Premier League has 3 teams in the Europa League, Brighton, Liverpool, and West Ham, all competing in that one. And then a little bit of a shout out to the Europa Conference League, Genk and Fiorentina, Club Brugge and Besiktas, and Brandon, your villains, kicking off their European campaign in 2023. Exciting times to be a Villa fan, exciting times to be a soccer fan. Seems like almost every day of the week there is now soccer to watch. It is back in full swing. And that brings us to MLS Fast 5. Over the pond we go. Our chance to predict scores. Probably outlandish thoughts, but we get our chance to do it. Anyways, I will get us started with St. Louis and LAFC, the 1 and 2 teams in the Western Conference. A great matchup to get things started. In St. Louis, I will take St. Louis 1-0 close matchup. Roman Burke doing his job in goal to keep LAFC off the score sheet. That is what I have in this one, Brandon.
LAFC will win 2-1 as their rankings show and preview. LAFC is going to go on their run like they do every year, it seems. Expect the LAFC win.
Steve?
I will also go on the LAFC route. I'll go for a 2-0 LAFC win here. Feeling a little frisky.
2-0. Interesting. And then we get closer to that playoff line, the all-important points as we begin to get towards the end of the season. Portland sitting 9th, San Jose 7th. In Portland, I will take a 2-2 draw. Both teams walking away with a point on this one, Brandon.
Portland needs something going. They will take a win here. I'll go a 1-0 close one.
Steve?
I'm going to go with a San Jose 2-1 victory, baby.
And then we have the Brandon Patesnick Derby. We have Columbus and Chicago going up against each other as your time in Columbus comes to an end. Your time in Chicago begins soon. I think that Columbus will secure the dub. Chicago not impressing much this season. 2-0 for me on this one.
Yeah, Columbus is tough to beat at home. They had a real bad game against Orlando. I mean, it was really good for a while. They went up 3-1, and then Orlando scored 3 unanswered goals to win this past weekend, 4-3. Very, very sad. But I think Columbus will win against Chicago. Chicago's not great. I'll say 2-0 Columbus.
Cool. Steve, on this one?
I'm going to go 3-0 Columbus. I know what they can do to teams when they play them at their own house. And I think Chicago's in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, we've obviously experienced that as Atlanta fans. FC Cincinnati still atop the East, taking on Montreal. Montreal trying to scrape into the playoff spot, still holding on there. I will take a 2-1 Montreal win. I think there's an upset on their hands on this one, Brandon. I know it's a bit silly, but could happen.
That is silly. It's going to go 2-1 the other way. I think Montreal might score first, but FC Cincinnati will bounce back as the 1 seed that they are and win 2-1.
Steve?
I'm gonna go for something crazy. I'll go for a 4-goal game, a 2-2 draw between these two guys.
Riveting indeed. And to finish things off, Atlanta United at home against DC United. Brandon, you are planning to be at this one. I may. We will see. And this one, I'm going to take a 3-0 Atlanta win at home.
Yeah, give us something. Daddy's back. Daddy's home. Atlanta United needs to win. I'll go with you, Cole. 3-0.
And Steve to finish us off on
Wow.
this one.
I don't feel. I just don't know with this Atlanta United team. It's just so difficult. Just 5 goals against Miami. I'll go pessimist. I'll go 1-2 Atlanta United lose to DC United.
Dude.
Come on, at least they're going to lose. At least give Benteke a hat trick or something.
I just
That's
feel
fine,
it.
it's fine.
I feel it in my loins.
In those loins. Well, that's the MLS Fast Five, which brings us to our last segment. You betcha. Our chance as amateur bettors, not giving you betting advice, but giving our betting shots, things that we will believe are a lock for this weekend of games. Steven, you're going to get us started. Your lock is who and what odds?
Oh man, I've just been in between these two bets this whole episode. That's actually why I timed out earlier to check the odds again.
Don't take mine.
But
Better not take mine.
fine. I won't take Brandon's that I'm assuming. So I'm gonna go for the shock. I'm gonna go for a Dortmund. Not even really a shock here. It's plus 330 odds in Vegas. It's a Dortmund draw versus PSG, which I think is very feasible. At plus 330, I'm definitely taking those odds. Some of the best odds of the weekend, I think. So you can go ahead and lock it in and cash out your check.
Yeah, honestly, that's crazy. I wonder what the win is for Dortmund. Probably in the 500s. Thanks for not taking my bet, which is Villa plus 320 to beat Chelsea away. They will do it. They might even roll them over. We'll see. But yeah, Villa is going to beat Chelsea at the Stamford Bridge. Lock it in.
Whew. You know, I was going to take the draw at plus 330, but I'm going to take the win at plus 330 for Tottenham over Arsenal. If we're going to be hometowning, I want to be confident on this one.
Mine's realistic.
We got to break some streaks out here. I'm going to
We're losing
take
credibility.
Big Ange on the road at the Emirates. Let's keep this train going. Plus 330 Tottenham getting the win over the Gunners.
God.
Reading the week,
Can I-
Con
can-
Norton.
Can I just say I'm so happy Premier League is back for Cole and I just to have various different opinions on Tottenham this year. I love it.
Hey, the big man said that he is not going to temper anybody's expectations. He wants fans to have fun. If we want to say we're going to win the league, he said, go ahead. I'm here for the good time. I'm here to have fun. Let me have my fun while I still can. Anyways, that's going to be it for the Supporter Section podcast. We hope that you enjoyed our time together today. If you have made it this far, please do leave a like on the video. Subscribe if you have not already. And do not forget to ask us a question in the comment section down below on YouTube. Ask us something about kits, about soccer, about anything, and we'll be sure to try and answer at least one of your questions next episode. I've been Cole Carter. They have been Brandon Pasnick, and Stephen Curl has been back for another episode of the Sports Section. Enjoy your week, everybody. Enjoy the Champions League and the Premier League and MLS soccer. It's all back, and Europe Conference League for you Villa fans. We'll see you in the next one. Until then, peace out. See ya.